How much does it cost to make an audiobook? That's the big question, and it's usually the first question an indie author will ask me, which makes sense. It's important to know. As with all things audiobooks, the answer varies depending on who you hire. However, there are a few fundamentals I can walk you through. Now, the cost might have you feeling like you're in a horror film, but I'm hoping to make it feel a bit more like a fairy tale. How long is your audiobook going to be? The reason this is important is because all audiobooks are paid on a per finished hour basis. What exactly does that mean? It means you are charged right down to the minute for the length of audio. So if your audiobook turns out to be 4 hours long, you will be charged the agreed upon rate times 4 hours. I'll get into more detail about that later. So how can you find out how long your book will be in audio format? Luckily, there is a simple equation to find out. Take the word count of your book and divide it by 9,300. Why 9,300? 9,300 is the average number of words spoken in an hour. Now, this can vary from narrator to narrator and even scene to scene, as we tend to read serious, thoughtful scenes much slower than we read a fast-paced action scene, for instance. As an example, if your book is 75,000 words, your audiobook is likely to be somewhere around 8 hours long. There's no way to know exactly for sure how long your book will be until after it's been recorded. So whenever you get a quote, it's just going to be based off this equation. The 3 pricing models of ACX. There are 3 payment schemes on ACX: Royalty Share Plus, and per finished hour. With Royalty Share, you and your chosen narrator will each get 20% of the audiobook sales for 7 years. The other 60% of sales goes to Audible. With Royalty Share deals, you cannot distribute outside of Audible. All sales are through Audible and Audible alone. After 7 years, you will get 40% and the narrator will be paid off. A word of caution regarding Royalty Share deals. A professional narrator is very unlikely to narrate a book that is over 10 hours long that has little to no sales on a Royalty Share only deal. And it's not because we won't love your book, it's only because our experience has shown us exactly how much work is involved in making an audiobook. If your narrator is doing their own editing, they are likely spending between 6 to 10 hours to every finished hour of audio on editing. If they're outsourcing that editing and proofing to someone else, it's likely costing them anywhere between $65 to $150 per finished hour. So in order to make a living wage, most professional narrators won't take a project on unless they know it will pay them back. And from the author's perspective, if you're making enough sales for it to be tempting for the narrator, there's a good chance it's not in your best interest to do so. Now, I'm not saying there aren't amazing and talented new narrators just getting started who won't happily do a royalty share deal. There certainly are. Most of us, including me, got our start that way. However, I hear a lot of authors tell me their narrator ended up ghosting them. And the reason why is this. Someone thought audiobook narration sounded fun. They auditioned for a book that most pros didn't go for, and they got the part. They went to record and realized it was a lot harder than they thought. They can't get those RMS levels where they need to be. They didn't realize how often they would stumble over words or just how time-consuming the whole process really is. And they simply give up and are too embarrassed to say anything, so they just disappear. This happens all the time. But the moral of the story is this. It's okay to hire a new narrator with a royalty share deal, if it's your only option. Just make sure you give them some grace. Give them a really long deadline and be patient while they work through the kinks. Also, tell them they can get in touch with me if they're stuck or struggling at all. I'm happy to help them. Now, Royalty Share Plus is very similar to Royalty Share, except that you pay an added per finished hour rate as well. It's like a combination of the two. This was created with the purpose of covering those outsourcing costs I mentioned earlier. The rule of thumb, although certainly not followed by everyone, is that a Royalty Share Plus per finished hour rate will be half of what they would charge for just per finished hour alone. So if a narrator usually charges $250 per finished hour, then they're likely to charge $125 per finished hour, plus royalties. This deal can be pretty tempting for a narrator because there's no risk of losing money, and also the hope that the audiobook will do well enough to make more money. A narrator might be more inclined to help you market the audiobook as well when royalties are involved. It's a great option when you don't have a huge budget, but you still want to work with top talent. However, you are still unable to distribute outside of Audible. The third and final payment option is per finished hour. This will vary wildly depending on who you hire as your narrator. Most professional narrators will be charging a minimum of $250 per finished hour. The benefits of this, however, is that you can distribute beyond Audible and you don't have to split the sales with a narrator. If you're ever unhappy with the audiobook for whatever reason, you can pull it without having to buy the narrator out. It's your audiobook. I know this is the most expensive option, but if you are able, this is the one I recommend. The amount of talent you will get auditioning for your book on ACX, if you put it up for per finished hour at between $200 to $400, will be amazing. What about duel and duet? I'm going to do an entire video on the differences between duel and duet because it's a big topic to tackle. But suffice to say, they are more expensive than a single narration. This is because of the editing involved. Duels are more expensive than singles, and duets are more expensive than both. It's just going to vary depending on which narrators you hire. A little quick note about duel and duets. ACX only allows you to contract one narrator. So if you're thinking of doing a duel or duet, it's not impossible to do on ACX, but knowing a good team is helpful. Now you know how long your book will be in audio format. You can multiply that by your chosen narrator's rate to get a sense of how much it will cost you to make your audiobook. You can choose a royalty share plan and pay nothing out of pocket, Royalty Share Plus, where you pay some out of pocket and share sales, or if you've saved up enough and have the means to do a one large off payment using per finished hour rate. Audiobooks may not be cheap to make. They are a one-of-a-kind magical experience for your listener. Audiobook fans are dedicated, and your book deserves to become the best audiobook it can be. Don't be tempted with a cheap AI audiobook. Listeners are not loving it. Not only are you putting fellow creatives out of business if you choose this option, you're also telling the market that it's okay. If you're on a super tight budget and you're also in a hurry, why not try out the royalty share option? Who knows? You might be giving the next Julia Whalen or Joe Arden their next big break. If you enjoyed this video and found it useful, please like, share, and subscribe. Our journey doesn't end here. I'll be doing an entire series of videos helping authors figure out how to turn their book into an audiobook in simple, easy to understand steps. So, until next time.